Could Simon be the Messiah? Did you hear? Rabbi Akiba declared it. Simon, son of the star, fulfiller of the ancient prophecy in Numbers 24. There was a buzz on the streets of Jerusalem in the year 133. Could Simon be the Messiah? New coins were being minted. The people so believed Simon was the Messiah, they began to date those coins year 1, year 2, and year 3. This was it. God's new age had dawned. Unfortunately, Simon, son of the star, was killed. And when he died, his movement died. And he was given a new nickname, Simon, son of the lie. Now that's not the only Messiah movement that's documented that happens either pre the time of Jesus or post the time of Jesus. There are other potential Messiah stories as well. And all of them follow a similar pattern. When the would-be Messiah dies, the movement dies. Because a dead Messiah meant a failed Messiah. In Luke chapter 24, two men are really sad and they're on a walk and a stranger approaches them and says, "Why are you so sad?" And they say, "Haven't you heard? Jesus was crucified and we had hoped he would be the one to redeem Israel." A dead Messiah meant a failed Messiah. So here's the million-dollar question. If dead Messiahs mean failed Messiahs, and if when a would-be Messiah dies, their movement also dies, why after Jesus' death does Jesus' movement not die? In fact, not only does it not die, it explodes. It breaks the pattern of all these other Messiah movements. Because God has raised Jesus from the dead. And if you're having a hard time believing that, just hang with me for a minute. Why, after Jesus' death, does Jesus' movement not die? They could have made it up. Sure, they could have made it up. If I make up a lie and then someone puts my life on the line and says, recant or die, I recant. I save my life. But Jesus' disciples, all the way to their deaths, did not recant, but maintained this is what really happened. But that's impossible. Do you think it was any easier to believe a dead man came back to life 2,000 years ago than it would be to believe that today? No way, it would be just as hard to believe it then. Science is a study of the repeatable. History is a record of the unrepeatable. You can't take history and stuff it into a science lab. It doesn't work like that. History looks at point A and point B and says, how did we get here? And if dead messiahs meant failed messiahs, and if when would-be messiahs died, their movements died, then why after Jesus' death does Jesus' movement explode and break all the patterns? How did we get here? Because God has raised Jesus from the dead. And if you're still having a hard time believing this, one, you're not alone. And two, you should want this to be true. Because if God can take Jesus' broken, dead body and breathe life back into it, what can't he do? Jesus' resurrection is God's claim that he's at work to make the world new again. See something broken? God is able to restore. See something that looks dead? God is able to breathe life. So many times, a lot of us function on blind hope, where we kind of cross our fingers and just say, gee, I hope it gets better. But the offer of Easter is not to a blind hope, but it's to a living hope. Capital L capital H, living hope. Jesus. If God can raise Jesus from the dead, what can't he do? Jesus' resurrection is God's claim that he hasn't abandoned the world, that he's at work in the world, that he cares, that he hasn't abandoned us, that he hasn't abandoned you. Jesus' resurrection is God's claim that brokenness doesn't have the last word, that death doesn't have the last word, but Jesus' resurrection is God's claim that restoration has the last word, life has the last word, God has the last word.